Welcome, Risers. It's that time once again for the Agent Rise podcast. I'm your co-host, Neil Mathweg, joined by Mindi, Kessenich, and today we're talking about the mistakes you can make around goal planning. Here we are, 2024, goal planning time of year, right? We are always getting excited about our goals, and today we're going to talk about the mistakes. Mindi, you haven't made any mistakes around goal planning at all.
Nope, never.
Nope, just dialed in. Mrs. Efficient over there.
I love
goal planning. Yes.
I love goal planning, and I feel like I'm fairly good at it, but I have absolutely made some mistakes. And last year, in the beginning of my beginning of the year goal last year, I realized about halfway through that it was a big mistake. So
we'll get into that.
Yep.
Yes, we'll get into that. We've got a list of them here. We got 5 mistakes here that you want to make sure you avoid when it comes around to goal planning. And the first one is I see this where they make your goals way too far out, way too long. Mm-hmm. I even did some training too, where you big, hairy, audacious goal, and then you have your 5-year goal and your 1-year goal, and then you break it down from there. And then I've even gone into this where I start out the beginning of the year and I just list out all my goals. I want this, I want this, I want this, and I come up with a list of 10 of them or so. And then I tuck those goals away and I bring them out at the end of the year and I check in and see, how did I do? Right. And I think that that's a big mistake. And the answer to this mistake, the better way to this is the 12-week year. And this is where you come up with 3 goals that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 weeks. And I'm telling you, this laser focus that you have on the goals, not only is it going to help you get the goals accomplished because you're focused on it, but the time frame that you're going to get it done in. So if you give yourself a year to get 3 goals done, you'll take a year to do it. But if you give yourself 12 weeks to get 3 goals done, you'll get it done in 12 weeks. And then the magic comes here, because you're getting 3 goals done in 12 weeks and you do 4 12-week years a year, you're now going to get 12 goals done in a year. And the likelihood of getting those goals done are really high because you're focused.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I also feel like I changed a lot over the course of a year. And I think that that's good. I think that we should be changing a lot over the course of a year. And so to some degree, I think that the reason that setting a goal on January 1st to accomplish by December 31st is hopefully by December 31st, you're not the same person you were who set that January 1 goal. So I think that this is multifaceted. I think that you touched on some really good reasons why you shouldn't set a goal in the beginning of the year for the end of the year. But I think that there's more to it. And that's part of it, is just that our goals should change between January 1 and December 31. And the beauty of the 12 weeks is you kind of get to then see yourself, and you get to reevaluate every couple of months versus like just forgetting about those goals and being like, I don't even know what they were, I forget it, and then you're just floundering in the middle of the year. You're kind of reflecting, and maybe you did set the wrong goal on January 1, but you're only kind of quote unquote wasting 12 weeks by working towards that goal that doesn't align, rather than 12 months.
It's so true, because I see it too. Like you look at some of your goals that you set a year ago, you're like, why was that even a goal? Yeah. What was that? So, and that brings us to our second one here. And Mindi, I want you to run with that. And this is around making your goals authentic to yourself, because I think we fall into that trap of our goals don't align with us, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really big goal. And I think especially for this one, it's specific to a real estate agent, because I think that we all are influenced a lot every single day by other real estate agents that we look up to, or other real estate agents that are on our teams or in our brokerages or whatever it may be. And we admire them. And so then we kind of look to what they have and set our goals around that. And so I think that we set our goals sometimes and get stuck in the comparison trap a little bit. And I think that's part of it. And the other part of it is just the expectation that we think in our mind that we should have as like a real estate agent specifically. is, that we should be doing X amount of this or X amount of that. And really it a lot of times, I think if you really think about it, you're like, but I don't really care about that. Or that's what happened to me last year. I set a goal on January 1 of last year. And I said, I want to double my production in 2023 from what I did in 2022. And then I got into the year, and it ended up being, as you all know, it ended up being a really tough year. And that goal was not going to be attainable. But as I learned that goal wasn't attainable, the other thing I learned is that I don't actually care about those numbers like I thought I did. And so it was a goal. If I really ask myself, like, well, why did I want to double my numbers? It wasn't because I wasn't making enough money. I made plenty of money in 2022. I think that we all made a good amount of money in 2022. And so it wasn't that I needed to make more money or even wanted to make more money. It was just an achievement thing. It was just the reason, the why behind that goal was just, it was very prideful. It was just very honestly silly. Like it wasn't something that I actually cared about for any other reason than to put up a fake trophy in my own mind and to say I did it, right? Like bragging rights would be the only reason that goal would have really mattered to me. And when you think about that too, like I didn't want, if you try to double your business, you have to double the amount of effort you put in. You have to double the amount of work you put into your career. And I didn't want to do that either. And so that was a very unauthentic goal that I set. And it really kind of then set me up for a bad mindset and failure along the way. The other thing I recently learned about goal setting that is in line with what we're talking about is Mel Robbins recently put out a podcast around goal setting. And I loved this example that she said, and it really, I think, will help you identify whether or not a goal is authentic to you. So she said, one year she saw a woman running down the beach in a bikini, and she had this six pack. And it was a woman that was around her age, and Mel Robbins was like, "That's it. I want a six pack." And so she thought about, well, what's it going to take? And she like wrote down this goal, and she's going after this goal. And then she realizes that she's like, I know what it takes to get a six pack. Like we all know what it takes to get six pack abs. And she's like, I have no interest in doing everything that I would need to do in order to get these six pack abs. And she said, would I like a six pack to land on my stomach like Amazon lands on your doorstep? Absolutely. But she's like, but I'm not going to go out and like not eat and work out 6 days. I'm not going to do what it takes, and I don't want to. And so I think, any goal that you're setting, it should have resistance. It should not be something that is really easy for you to obtain because maybe it's something that you're already kind of good at. And B, it should be something that you know how to get it, and you are ready and willing to do what it takes to do that. And if you're not willing to do the sit-ups and eat the food that it's going to, or not eat the food that it might take for you to see six-pack abs, you should probably just come to terms with it not being the right goal, the authentic goal for you. And speaking of production goals, Neil, you have some thoughts around whether or not an agent should set production goals, and if they should, kind of how they structure that, right?
Right. Yeah, because I think with production goals, we get into this mistake of like, I want to sell 50 homes next year, right? And we make this production goal, and then we break that down into quarterly goals, and then we break it down into monthly goals, and we focus on our production goals. Well, production isn't something that's in your direct control, right? I mean, you can do the tasks and put the effort towards the things that are going to produce that production, that are going to bring that production. But the number of actual homes that you sell is technically out of your control. So instead of having a production goal, like I'm going to sell 5 houses in the next 12 weeks, understand what is it going to take for me to sell 5 houses in the next 12 weeks? How many people do I need to have? How many conversations do I need to have? How many people do I need to get in front of in order for that to happen? And make your number around something like engagements. How many engagements do I need to make every single day or every single week or every single month in order to produce that? And so you shift your goals away from production goals and into tasks that are actually in your control.
Yeah, income producing activities. I just did this activity with one of the agents on our team. And what we did is we looked at her every month of last year, how many deals she closed. And then I started digging into like, well, when did you start really getting consistent with your open houses? And it was fascinating because the numbers don't lie. She was like, oh, you're right. I started here. And then you could see 90 days after she really started committing to those open houses, she had started getting consistent closings. And so that was really helpful for her too, because now as she's looking into this year, she has that success leaves clues. And the clues were that she has to do these income producing activities consistently in order to have some of that control that we all want over our real estate business.
That's it. And the number of engagements that we make, I mean, I get to see it week after week with the number of riser reports that come in from members. And I see the numbers where you've got 30, 40, 50 engagements a week. And then I got some that are reaching 60, but you're in that 30 to 40 to 50 range. You're going to have a very, very good looking business. You're putting that energy in and you're speaking to that many people every week. You're going to sell 25 to 50 homes a year. It's almost a guarantee. I mean, I just see it year after year with one agent after another. So focusing on those engagements. And I think the other thing too, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, 30 people a day, where are these people going to come from? How am I going to talk to these people? Right. And until you start measuring it, it feels like a lot. But then also come join Agent Rise and we'll help break that down because it starts with your 3 pillars, right? You're bringing in engagements from your 3 pillars, but then you got the middle of the funnel where you're matchmaking, and then you got the bottom of your funnel where you're servicing. And as a new agent, all of your engagements are going to be up at the top because you're not really matchmaking quite yet. You're not really showing houses and writing offers quite yet. So a lot of it, when you're first a brand new agent, you're always working up at the top of the funnel. And that's exhausting and that's hard to get those. That's where it's like, who am I going to even talk to? But then once you start getting the buyers and the sellers into the middle of the funnel and you start matchmaking, all of those are easier engagements. And then, I mean, there's no better engagement than going out and showing somebody a house and writing an offer. That's an awesome engagement, right? So your engagement numbers will increase as you get into it. But we're not going to make this podcast about getting engagements. This podcast is about goal planning. And with this, make sure that you don't set production goals and set goals that lead to production. Now, our fourth one is kind of a 2-for-1er. It's a 2-for-1er because this one goes, you can have your goals not specific enough, or you can have your goals too specific. And Mindi, I'd love for you to speak to this one.
I think the best way for me to explain this mistake is to just kind of give an example. Because again, as I'm talking to my agents, everybody's talking about goals this time of year. So I have lots of good examples of good things and bad things. And one of the agents on my team had set a goal as we were discussing goals on our team meeting. And she said, I want to do YouTube this year. I'm finally ready to commit. And then I started asking her all kinds of questions because setting a goal like I want to add, open houses or I want to add YouTube, for example, into my business is not nearly specific enough. And so my questions to her were, okay, when do you want your first video out? When do you want your YouTube channel to be created by? How often do you want to post videos? And she kind of looked at me like, oh, I don't really know. And so making sure that once you set that goal, you then break it down like, well, what's that going to look like? What does doing, quote unquote, doing YouTube or doing open houses look like for you in your business? And so then making sure that they're specific enough that you can control them and they don't feel like too much. Like I'm a very 0 to 60 type person. I don't recommend doing this with your goals. So like, for example, instead of saying, I'm going to put out one YouTube video a week. If you're brand new to YouTube and you're planning on like doing all the editing yourself, cut yourself a little bit of slack and maybe put a goal around one every other week, because the consistency is more important necessarily for the algorithm than even just than the amount that you're putting out, especially as you're just getting going. And so making sure that they are not too vague. Like you have to have enough of a parameter around those goals that you know how to accomplish it, like that you know what the steps are going to be. At the same time, you don't want them to be so specific that you start to kind of feel like you're not attaining them. And I think a good example of that is if you say you're a newer agent and you have a goal of closing 12 deals this year. Know and be okay with the fact that they are probably not going to be equally spaced closings. Like you're not going to probably close on the last Friday of the month every single month from January to December, right? So if you don't have a closing scheduled for January, like you're missing this month. I hate to tell you. But that being said, know that you have until the end of the year to get that goal accomplished. Like if it's a bigger, longer term goal, don't be so specific that at the end of January, you already feel like I'm already behind and there's no way I'm going to make it. There's no way I'm going to make this goal because it's already the end of January and I haven't closed a deal. There's no way I'm going to close 12, making sure that your goal is not so specific and so rigid that there's not flexibility in the timeline for that.
Yes. And if you go back to one of our earlier mistakes, you're not going to make that production goal so rigid like that, right? And you're going to stay away from the production goal and go with goals that you can control. Now, this leads us to our fifth and final mistake, and this is around setting a pace for your goals. Because like you just had mentioned, you set a pace for your goals and you get off pace, the wheels start to fall off. So let's use an example. Let's say I want to do a video a week for the next 12 weeks. In my 12-week year, I'm going to do a video a week. Instead of doing a video a week, write down that you're going to do 12 videos in 12 weeks, or maybe cut yourself some slack and say, okay, the first couple weeks, I got to get my studio set up. I got to get this set up. I got to find my voice. I got to figure out how I'm going to record, how I'm going to edit. So man, maybe 12 videos is too much. Maybe even 10 videos is too much. Maybe I should bring that down to 5 videos. I'm going to get 5 videos done in the next 12 weeks. And over the next 12 weeks, you get that first video done, check. You get that second video done, check. And see, this is the mistake that we make, is we make it around a pace and we can't ever find that pace. And so then we beat ourselves up long before we ever start building ourselves up. So don't just work on that number of listings or that number of videos that you want to get done in that period of time.
Yeah. And I mean, we all know as real estate agents that all of a sudden, everybody in our pipeline wants or needs something in the same week. And so if you have like a pace set that you're going to do something big like that every single week, you don't leave yourself any room for margin. And in our industry, we need room for margin. We have inspections that blow up that we need to negotiate. Like there's just things that happen that are going to take away from some of these things sometimes. And so if we don't give ourselves enough of a buffer and allow there to be room in that pace that we set, we're setting ourselves up for failure. If I could just add one more mistake that I've made. Yes.
I got another one too.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I would say, and this is actually kind of a really big one, so I'm surprised it didn't come up when we were kind of planning this episode, is making sure that you're in the right mindset for the goal that you're setting. And I have an example around this one too. So a few years ago, I set a goal to quit drinking alcohol for like a couple months. I think it started with like dry January, and then it was like, well, I'm going to just keep going. I want to make it to my birthday, which is in the end of March. And I set up this goal to quit drinking. And when I got into it and I accomplished, I went all the way into April, but I hated it. And I felt like I was forced and I didn't have a choice. And I made this goal and I felt like I was missing out. And I really didn't enjoy it because I wasn't at the time in the right mindset. It was just like a trendy thing that people were doing. And I'm like, yeah, I should do that too. And so I did it for the wrong reasons. And so my mindset around it wasn't there. Well, as I think I've probably shared with some of our listeners, I recently chose to quit drinking again for health reasons this time. However, because it's like to improve my health and to really do something that I'm really excited about and passionate about, my mindset is completely different about it this time. And my experience has been completely different. It's, I made this goal from a place of of loving myself, of loving my body, of really wanting to improve my health. And so I'm pairing it, like I'm habit stacking it with the way that I'm eating and the way that I'm working out and sitting in a sauna and doing all of this stuff. And now all of a sudden, this goal that is the same goal, really, that I set a couple years ago feels completely different. And my experience with it is completely different. And I think that we can use this, with our businesses as well. Like maybe you're in a season where your kids are really little and they're not in daycare and you want to set the same goal as another mom in the office who's got school age kids. That's just not fair. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're not in the same season, and maybe that it's not the season for you to set that specific goal, just to kind of bring it into like the business aspect of it. Like just make sure that you are in the right season and the right mindset for the goal that you are setting. I, for example, am an achiever. And so sometimes I'm going to have goals that are very achievement based. But I've learned through my mistakes in goal setting that I'm not going to set achievement type goals when I'm also struggling or going through a really difficult season. Like right now, one of my big goals is to improve my kidney function and improve my health. So I'm not going to right now pair that with an extreme achievement goal because I'm going to set myself up for failure. So be in the right season for your goal and make sure you're in the right mindset and you want it for the right reasons.
Yeah. And this is it too. When you say the word season too, it goes back to 12-week year. I mean, a season is 12 weeks, right? So it's like you got to be in different seasons and keep reevaluating. And the two other ones that I wanted to add to this, I got two other mistakes, but the one is you don't start with taking inventory. You start goal planning with just like, oh, what do I want my new goals to be? What do I want to go get? And in that, you put yourself in the gap. So before you start goal planning, make sure you take inventory. Take inventory of what you've accomplished in your life, what you've accomplished in the last year, what you've accomplished in the last 12 months, and come from this place of gain before you start to goal plan. And then get in the rotation, turn this into season, get into the rotation and do a 12-week year every 12 weeks. Or if the wheels fall off, start over.
Yeah.
If you're week 6 and the wheels fall off, start a new 12-week year, because the agents that I see that are in repetition of 12-week years, they get so focused on their goals, they crush it for 12 weeks. I could talk to them at any time in those 12 weeks and they'd tell me exactly where they're at with their 3 goals and how close they are in all 3 of them and how many weeks they're on, how many weeks they have left. Like they know where they're at. Then they get done with their 12 weeks. They celebrate almost always all 3 goals because they're so focused. They celebrate that they accomplished all 3 goals. They go on a mini vacation or out to dinner or something to celebrate. They take inventory again. They go through their achievements that they did in their lifetime, in the last year, and in the last month. They get in that place of the gain, and then they set 3 more amazing goals. And they're just in this rotation. And I mean, some of them now, we've been teaching the 12-week year for 2-3 years now. And so there's we've got agents that are practicing this, and just it's become abundant. And if you're not familiar with the 12-week year that we keep referencing, I want to give a shout out to Brian Brian Moran, make sure you go get his book, because like it has really made a big difference, and it's made a big impact in how we set our goals. And so don't make it any more complicated than it needs to be. Don't make the mistake of not doing the 12-week year. There it is.
My favorite part about the 12-week year is when the wheels fall off, you just start over. It's a new year on Monday.
That's right. Yep. Let us know if you got any other mistakes, and let the community know what other mistakes you have, and we can add it to the conversation. And we wish you the best in 2024, and hope your goal planning follows that. Go set 3 goals that you can accomplish in the next 12 weeks and break it down. There's much more to it, and we talk about a lot of it inside Agent Rise. So if you ever want to join us at Agent Rise, go to agentrisecoaching.com and book your discovery call today. And with that, we thank you so much for listening to the Agent Rise podcast. And like always, remember to be the reason somebody smiles today.